Hi, guys, welcome back. I love how YouTube gives us a way where we can jump into the time machine and go back to the past and check on people's progress through the years. I want you to meet Olivia P. This video is about 10 years old, and she's really excited because she just lost some weight on the OptiFast 10-day diet.
Give me a hamburger. Give me chicken. Give me salt. Give me anything. Like, it was insane. The only thing I could do to subside my cravings was just go to bed. And it was hard. Everybody is different, but the broth for me is a no-go because I get that little taste of beef or a little taste of chicken. And meat, I've always been meat, yum, any kind of meat, give it to me, all of it. So I've learned not to do that. So right now, I'm living solely and entirely off of 4 shakes a day. I have 2 chocolate, 2 vanilla, every day. It's working. And I'm not as hungry. And I know it's all in my head because I take my shake and I'm not really hungry. Like, my stomach doesn't feel hungry. When I started OptiFast, I was 374.8 pounds. And then this morning, so that was 10 days ago. And then this morning on day 10, I am 359.6, which is a total loss of 15 pounds in 10 days. Is that not amazing? I'm so excited. I can't stop smiling because it's like all the battles I've had with myself of, oh, just go in the fridge and just take one bite, just one bite. Like when my fiance makes grilled cheese, just take one bite. It couldn't hurt, one bite, but I don't do it. And that's what my brain keeps saying. It couldn't hurt. It'll just, that's not even a calorie. That's like 3 calories, like whatever. But I haven't done it. I have not cheated once, not once.
All right, I'm sure it's more than 1 or 2 calories, right? But I'm really proud of her for not cheating, not once. But let's check out this next video. Let's go back in the time machine. Okay, so the last video was after she had lost 15 pounds or so on the OptiFast diet. Now, fast forward a year, she's decided to go to the Roux-en-Y surgery, and now we're going to hear a little bit about her experience.
Hi guys, it's Olivia. I'm just gonna do a little video today about changes I've seen in my body. Here's one change: major hair loss. I've lost so much hair. It's ridiculous how much hair I've actually lost. And
Well, don't tease us, show us.
it upsets me quite a bit because I always had my individual hairs were quite thin, but I had a lot of hair. And now I have thin hair that's like, I don't know if you can tell, it's just really sparse. Like there, you can really see it. It's really sparse. And I try to keep my hair like just tied loosely, like it's very loosely tied in a bun. I don't wash it as much as I used to anymore, probably like 2, maybe 3 times a week, maybe less. Like, it really depends on how I'm feeling. I condition it often, but I don't wash it, shampoo it very often. Here's one that I noticed a little while ago. I don't know, you guys probably okay, all of these sound like stupid little things that don't make any sense, but they are what they are. So, first notice, I don't know if you can see, but I can actually see every knuckle I have. Before, my hand was too fat and I didn't have like protruding knuckles at all. But then, look at that, there's a knuckle there and there and there and there. I have knuckles now. What the heck?
Okay, that's pretty cute. You never really think about that, but the reality is when you're losing weight, sometimes these little victories feel good. And as far as the hair kind of situation, I think a lot of us know from these videos that a lot of people go through that at the beginning. It tends to grow back. I don't know if it ever comes back fully the way it was, but it does grow a little bit back after your body kind of acclimates and gets used to things. But since we're in the time machine, let's see how she looks in her newer videos.
Hi YouTube, it's Olivia. It's been a minute since the last time I did a video with you guys. Life has changed a lot. I've moved. I live in a new place now. I've changed jobs. I've gotten married. I have like 2 or 3 videos that I have no idea why, but they're like 14,000 views on it or something like that, or like 1,000 views on it. The 14,000 one, I don't understand. It's the OptiFast Day 10, guess how much weight I've lost. I don't know why it's got so many. My husband says that it's got something to do with the fact, like something in the title makes it pop out.
And I think out of all the transformations we've seen, this one might be the best one. She literally looks like a brand new person. And sometimes when people drop a ton of weight, they kind of still look like they have a bigger person's face. She looks like a completely different human being. Let me know what you think of her transformation. Maybe give it a 1 to 10 score.
Update. For those of you who don't know, my name's Olivia. I had Roux-en-Y gastric bypass surgery June 20th, 2013. But my highest weight, I do remember that, was 385 pounds. If you want to know what I look like, just go back and look at some other videos that I had posted. I posted right at the beginning of my journey, and here I am now 3 years later. My highest weight was 385 pounds, and my current weight is, I hover around like 180, 190, somewhere in there. For my wedding, I was like 180 for sure.
Now, let's be honest. If we all had to guess her weight, she just told us it was 180. But now that she said that, and again, I can't really tell how tall she is, right? But I would have guessed more like 145, 150-ish. If you would have guessed lower like me, let me know. If you would have guessed right at 180 or a little higher, let us know down in the comments.
So I had the surgery in June, and the following July, for 2 or 3 months before that, I had been having horrible pains on my right side of my stomach, like right about here. And it turned out that I was having gallstone attacks. It was horrible. And I had 2 ultrasounds done, and both times, different technicians, different buildings, they couldn't find my gallbladder. And they kept saying, "Are you sure that you haven't already had it removed?" And I'm like, yeah, I would know if there was an organ removed out of my body or not. And they said, well, then it's just this solid mass. And they showed me on the image, and it was just this black mass that was there. It looked like, to them, they said black means that nothing's there. I was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's still there. One day I was going to work, and I was walking across a really busy street, and I ended up fainting and having a really, really bad attack. Then I don't know what happened. I don't know how I got off the street. There were people around me that like moved me and stuff. They didn't call 911. There wasn't an ambulance that came or anything like that. I called Sean, my husband, and he took me to the hospital. By 11 o'clock that night, they decided that I was going to go in for emergency surgery. So gastric bypass was 2013, and then gallbladder was removed the following summer. They removed it, and the surgeons told me that they did it laparoscopically, the same as they do the gastric bypass. So just like tubes with cameras and tools that go inside tubes, so they don't actually have to cut you open all the way. They removed the gallbladder through an incision that they did in my belly button. It was so big, and when they took it out, they said it crunched. It was just like, most people, when they get their gallbladder removed, it's because they've had, you know, like 10 at most stones that have tried to pass, and it's like, yeah, we need to remove it. Yeah, mine was just a solid mass. It was full. And they said that the reason of that is your gallbladder filters your fat. And since I was losing weight so rapidly, it was filtering a lot of fat. It was in overdrive. It was working so much. So, and it was terrible. I'm a teacher. I'm an early childhood educator, registered early childhood educator. And no matter what anyone freaking wants to tell you, educator is in the title. It is a synonym for teacher. I am a teacher. I don't give Nothing really happened medically. I was good with my my vitamins. Calcium is very difficult to get in. At least I thought I was good. Blood work was coming back. I was going in for my appointments and everything was fine. And then everything was great. We got married last May 28th, 2016. I remember that date. We got married. It was a wonderful day, beautiful day. It was great. Then everything was fine, and we decided that we were going to start trying to have a baby. And clearly, I'm a teacher. You've never met anyone who's as baby crazy as I am. I'm very baby crazy. We had been trying and trying and trying, and nothing was happening. And so we went to the doctors, and they, after 6 months of trying, they had said, just keep trying, come back in another 6 months, and if still nothing happens, we'll refer you to a fertility clinic. And that was in October, November. Christmas came last Christmas, 2016. Christmas Day was great. Everything was fine. I ate well, slept well the night before. Might have been a little bit tired because it was traveling and family and blah, blah, blah. And then went to bed that night. I had 1 glass of wine at dinner. So there was technically alcohol in my system. I don't remember most of this, to be honest. But what I've been told is Sean woke up and my head was right back. It sounded like I was choking, making a kind of sound. And my arms were straight out like that, and they were shaking. And my whole body was shaking. And I ended up peeing. Also, I lost control of my bladder. I peed the bed for the first time since I was 2. It turned out that I was having a seizure. I was having a grand mal seizure. He said that the shaking, the sound lasted a couple of minutes max. Not he said it felt like a couple of minutes. It might have been 30 seconds. I don't know. I have no memory of this whatsoever. Then the doctor, then he said for about 10 or 15 minutes, I just sat there and stared. He said that I wasn't talking. He said he was begging me to wake up, saying, Olivia, wake up. Olivia, why are you doing this? Olivia, clapping in my face, shaking me. He said that he got behind me and wrapped his arms around me and just sort of rocked me back and forth, crying, thinking that I had gone brain dead or that something was really, really wrong. And then he said that he finally decided to call 911, and they had said that it sounded like I was having a seizure.
Holy shit, Sean. I mean, I would have called 911, 30 seconds into it. My goodness. Did that surprise anyone else? Who the heck would wait that long before you call 911? Jeez Louise, get life alert with a husband like that.
And paramedics came, picked me up, took me to the hospital. They did all the tests, they did blood work, they did whatever. I remember staring at the wall, sitting up in my bed at some point, and I remember staring at the wall. And then I remember being in the bathroom, and I remember Sean dressing me. And so they did all that. And so we're sitting in the bed in the emergency room at the hospital, and Sean's on this side of me, and the curtain opens, and the doctor comes in, and he says, we have good news and we have bad news. And I was just like, okay, well, what's the bad news? And he's like, I'll do the bad news first. Bad news is you did have a seizure. We're going to be referring you to a neurologist, and they're going to be doing tests, and there was a whole thing. It meant that my driver's license had to be taken away. Where I live, the law is that if you have one seizure, your license has to be, it's revoked, it's removed temporarily for 3 months, and you have to be 3 months seizure-free, no medication, no nothing, and then they'll give it back to you. Makes complete sense, because if you have an undiagnosed thing, you don't want to be driving down the highway and have a seizure. You could kill someone. Makes complete sense. And then they had asked us before, is it possible that you're pregnant? And I said, yes, it is possible. We've been trying. We got married in May, but that I doubted that I was. And the man smiled, and he said, you are pregnant.
All right, so we're going to stop the video there. There's still obviously 12 minutes left in that video, so I urge you to go check out Olivia P's channel. I'll link it in the description, and tell me what you thought of the rest of her video. But for the rest of us, let's go get our shoes. Let's go for a walk. Good morning, Venters. Guys, imagine this. Imagine a law that Russia passes in 2023, making all aid to Ukraine a law. Holy shit, that was a bad start. Good morning, Venters. I hope you guys are having a good day. Imagine making a $51.80 donation to Ukraine in 2022 from your home in Los Angeles. Now imagine traveling to Russia where you have dual citizenship. You're an American that has dual citizenship in Russia. And imagine a law that they pass in Russia in 2023 making that donation that you made in 2022 illegal. Now imagine going to visit your family in Russia and getting arrested for treason and getting sentenced to 12 years. That is the story of Yesenia Karolina of Los Angeles. And her boyfriend, Chris Van Heer, went on the news today to make an appeal to the American people and the American government to try to get Yesenia home. Now, here's a couple questions I have that I find really, really interesting, okay? Just 2 weeks after a prison swap where Russia and the West swap a handful of prisoners, right? Why wasn't Yesenia part of that prison swap? And perhaps the scariest question of all, how the heck did Russia find out about a donation that Yesenia made to Ukraine from her home in Los Angeles in 2022? And then, of course, the obvious question, why would a law passed in 2023 have any effect at all on something somebody did from another country a year earlier? Are these things bizarre or what? So again, an American citizen named Yesenia Karolina makes a $51 and change donation to Ukraine in 2022 because she has dual citizenship with Russia and because a lot of her family members live in Russia. She goes to visit them in January, is detained at the airport, and hasn't been really seen since. So I just thought that was really crazy. And according to her boyfriend, the only way they can communicate with her is via letter. But here's the problem. Whenever you send a letter to the Russian prisons, it does make its way to Yesenia's hands, but of course it does so after the Russian jails and prisons read it. So I just thought that was really a scary situation. Now here's a little asterisk to this story. My daughter and my son-in-law, after they got married, took a little trip to some different countries in Europe and around the world. One of the countries that they stopped at and visited was Russia. Now keep in mind, my daughter works for an Arizona-based newspaper. So I'm just so thankful that when they visited Russia back in, I think, 2017, I'm just thankful that this stuff wasn't really happening. And my goodness, could you imagine if it would have? Could you imagine if they would have said, you know, based on my daughter, hey, you're a reporter for an American newspaper, we're gonna throw you in jail for treason or for spying? Oh my goodness, that would be so scary. And I just don't understand how we did this giant prisoner swap and we didn't think to add this young woman's name to the roster. Oh,
You know, we talk a lot. There's this saying in America, and if you're outside of America, you might have heard this. We have this saying that, you know, no one left behind. God, I can't help but feel that we really abandoned this girl. And of all things, she donates $50. That was something that American government members were trying to get people to do back in the day. Donate money, you know, help us get these people some defense funds so that they can battle this tyranny from Russia, right? And now here we have basically abandoned this woman. And to make a $50 donation and get sentenced to 12 years, holy moly, is that the harshest sentence ever? And then here was the crazy thing that they didn't talk about, but they did mention. She went ahead and I guess she pled guilty. So again, I don't know how that affects anything. Apparently, if she would have went into the trial and said, hey, I'm not guilty, I guess apparently they could have given her even more time, maybe even a death penalty for all I know. I'm just speculating. But my goodness, how the heck did Russia find out? The only thing I can think of is that maybe somewhere, somehow, you know, maybe they're at the airport or something and she sees this screen talking about the Ukrainian situation. And who knows, maybe she was overheard talking about this donation she made back in 2022. Now keep in mind, she was arrested in 2023. This law went into effect in 2023. And I take that back. She was actually arrested in January of 2024. So I just found that really, really odd. If Russia has a way of finding out how American citizens, you know, spend donation money in Los Angeles, then my goodness, I guess Russia has a pretty darn impressive team of plants all around the world. How the heck do they find something like that out? And is that not the scariest thing ever? God, Russia does not mess around. If they think you're guilty of treason or whatever, they are willing to throw the book at you. And I don't know any details about the women's prisons, but I remember a couple years back, I watched this show on Russian prisons, and oh my God, the way they treat their prisoners out there, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty miserable time for Yesenia. So again, have you guys heard about this? If you guys are hearing about it, I assume you're hearing about it today just like I am. So I just thought that was scary as all heck. It kind of lets you know that whatever you do in life, sometimes it's better to do them, you know, where you don't let anybody know your moves. But here's the thing, as an American, you'd like to think that you can donate your money wherever you'd like without having to be punished for it in another country. That is crazy. Now here's one thing that's interesting. She's a dual citizen of America and Russia. I wonder what led her to donate $50 to Ukraine. You know, if you're a Russian citizen, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to back Russia. But I do kind of wonder, I am kind of curious, why the heck was she donating $50 to the Ukrainian side of the war? I'm kind of surprised that if anything, she didn't donate $50 to the Russian side. And sometimes when you plead guilty in another country, it's because the lawyer that you're assigned tells you, hey, if you plead not guilty and you're found guilty, you're going to be in even more trouble. You know, in America, usually when people take a plea and plead guilty, usually they get a lighter sentence. So the only thing I can think of is that her Russian attorneys probably told her, hey, plead guilty, we'll get you out of here sooner. But if sooner is a 12-year sentence rather than a 100-year sentence, oh my God, that just seems really cruel. So I don't know what Russia's game plan is. Maybe their game plan is, hey, let's get as many people arrested as possible that we can so that future prisoner swaps can happen. That's the only thing I'm thinking. By the way, you want to know what my thoughts were on that prisoner swap that they did 2 weeks ago? And I would love for you guys to let me know your thoughts below. But my thinking is, why the heck do these countries want to get their prisoners back? I mean, you wouldn't want your citizens in a country that you're contemplating bombing. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, is that why they wanted their Russian citizens out of our prisons and back home? Because if so, that's a scary idea, you know? And then that's another thing I wonder, do we have a couple of Russian people in prison that we haven't given up? Or have we drained the prison systems of all Russian citizens and now they're back on Russian soil? I don't know the answer to that. I would desperately like to think that since they have a couple of our prisoners still, evidently, I'd like to think that we have somebody that we could trade with them. Here's the scary thing. Whenever there's a trade, I feel like we're always trading for some really good person that hasn't done a thing, and we're giving up some hardcore criminal that's responsible for a lot of damage and death. At least that's the way they make the prison swaps always sound. It always sounds like we're getting back this angelic person, and yet we're giving up this demon of a person. So I'd like to know your thoughts on that too. Are these good trades? You know, sometimes you don't want to let a person out of prison when their number one thought is, how can we cause havoc and destruction on America? Because it sounds like all the people that we round up have these grandiose ideas of doing some damage to America. Unless that's just propaganda too. You know, that's the one thing that's so tough. I've been watching Scott Ritter videos, and I don't know if you guys have heard, but Scott Ritter's house was raided by the FBI last week. And basically they're thinking that he's in cahoots with the Russians. What's he been doing on a national scale? On a national or even worldwide scale, Scott Ritter's been coming on to a lot of YouTube videos, and he's been giving his take that he thinks Ukraine is just getting worked over by Russia, and that Russia is just slaughtering Ukrainian soldiers left and right. That's been his big battle cry. Now, another YouTuber that confuses me is called Jake Bro, B-R-O-E. And I urge you to look up Scott Ritter videos just over the last couple weeks and Jake Bro videos, because here's the crazy thing. If you watch these videos from Jake Bro, you end up getting this idea that Ukraine is just steamrolling past Russia, and that Russia is inept, and that Russia has lost a quarter of all their tanks and all their military weaponry. They have no logistics capability. They can't even stop Ukraine when they try to do an incursion inside Russia. So that's the one side of the argument. Meanwhile, Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor are on the exact other side. They're literally telling at the same time that people are saying Ukraine is killing Russia, they're literally saying, no, 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 the Russian bear is destroying Ukraine. So again, I don't know what to make of this. It's almost like having two pieces of propaganda thrown at you at the same time. You have Scott and Colonel McGregor saying Russia is winning in a horrible way. And then you have the Jake Bro and other people saying Ukraine is really fighting valiantly and Russia is inept. So again, if you guys don't mind, share your thoughts here. Who is right? Who is wrong? How are we able to get two completely opposite-sided stories? And is there a little bit of truth to both sides? Is Ukrainian actually winning this war? Or is Russia winning this war? And same with death tolls. I hear some numbers as low as 25,000 for the Ukrainian death toll. And then I hear other numbers where it's as high as 600,000 soldiers have died in the last 2 years. Throw that number over to Russia. I've heard almost the exact same thing. Sometimes you hear that only 20,000 soldiers in Russia have died or been taken out of the war in the form of a casualty. In other words, you can sometimes be injured and considered a casualty. You don't have to lose your life necessarily. But how the heck does some people say Russia has lost 25,000 soldiers, and then on other accounts they've lost, 250,000 soldiers? So again, I keep hearing all these different numbers, and it's really, really challenging to make sense of it all. So again, would you, if you had a family member that wanted to travel to Russia, would you urge them not to go? Or would you be okay with it? Because now that we know they can find out about something you did 2 or 3 years ago from the comfort of your home in Los Angeles, I don't know if I would ever want to step foot in that country. And I am just counting my blessings that my daughter was never harassed. Oh, and by the way, she was mildly harassed. She told me that when she was in the Russian airport, that they asked her about 15 or 20 minutes worth of questions. So that is a little strange. But ultimately, because it was in 2017, it was no big deal. But if you listen to Scott Ritter, he'll tell you this Russian-Ukrainian war has been going on since 2014. So I don't know, it's really, really interesting. Have you guys heard this as well, that technically this Russian war with Ukraine has been going on since 2014? Oh my goodness, just these things are scary to me because I don't like the idea of people going to prison for reasons like this. This just seems really, really crazy. But it also reminds you that here in America, one of the things that makes us special is that we should be able to talk about our experiences in life without fear of repercussion. You should be able to talk about your thoughts on a particular issue without fear of the mob or fear of going to prison or fear of going to jail. And it's just really, really crazy that I feel like when I was a kid, you could say so much more as an American that you can now. So again, that's another thing I would love for you guys to weigh in on. Have we lost some rights here in America without officially losing anything? In other words, were we able to speak our mind a lot easier 20, 30, 40 years ago than we are now? And therefore we walk. On another note, we are down to our final month. We are at day 62 now. Guys, this has been one of those challenges where it was kind of like a silent challenge. We didn't really make too much news of it, but I think going into the following challenge, I think I am gonna make a little bit more news about it and hopefully get some more people excited. I've noticed this last couple of weeks with the heat and stuff that it's just been really, really challenging even seeing people outside. A lot of times, even though I don't see walkers, I still see people in their front yards and stuff. And I've even noticed in the last couple of weeks, I don't see too many people even outside. It's been that warm, you know? What are some of the challenges that you guys are dealing with when it comes to weather? You know, in Arizona, we're lucky if we have 2 or 3 rainstorms over the course of a year. But I know for some of you, you guys live in states where it might be raining once or twice a week. When it rains, how do you try to keep your walking routine going? If you can, let me know. Sometimes people have a membership to a church gym. Some of these churches around the country are so large that they can actually have a full-size gym within the church itself. And sometimes people go get those memberships and they are like a fraction of an actual gym membership. We had a mega church here where once upon a time I got a little gym membership with them. And I think it was like you had a choice. You could either pay $5 a month or you could pay $2 on a daily per diem type situation where every day you work out, you just give them $2. And so I just thought, well, heck, here's a $5 bill. Cover me for the month. And I think I ended up using their gym for 2 or 3 months. When I see high-speed chases, you know, occasionally a high-speed chase will make the news, right? When I see those high-speed chases, I always envision a guy driving behind the wheel, and he doesn't want to stop because he has all these preconceived notions of what prison or jail would be. And maybe he sees himself being bullied or not having too good of a time in jail, you know? Am I going to be taken advantage of in prison? I better take that word out of there, so I probably will. So let's start that over. I know a lot of young guys, when I was young at least, that were like, man, I am never going to prison. Do you have any idea what those people will do to me in there? You know, so there's a lot of people that have that fear. So whenever I see a high-speed chase on TV, I always picture a young man behind the wheel saying, oh, hell no, I'm not going to prison. I'm not going to have people taking advantage of me in there, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of these high-speed chases happen. As a matter of fact, that's probably the reason they all happen. You ever have a situation where you're watching a video and they pull over a young man and they're like, hey, where's your license and registration? And instead of just giving them his license and registration, he ends up just trying to talk and make excuses and tell the cops why they're bad people. And before you know it, a simple traffic stop ends up being a situation where somebody gets hurt or somebody gets forcefully arrested, right? Maybe we have to make some sort of laws where people know in advance, hey, if you get caught, speeding or doing something like this, this is what your maximum sentence is going to be. Because if you knew that speeding was going to get you a maximum sentence of maybe, 60 days in jail, maybe people would quit freaking out about everything. Because you always hear these stories of how this person had a simple traffic stop that would have been nothing more than a ticket written to them. And now all of a sudden they're going to jail for 6 months because they ended up, running away in their car. And then what happens when they run away in their car? The cops chase them, and then a lot of times there's an accident. And that was the problem with the Illinois person the other day that hurt Mrs. Massey. If you remember, he shot her in the face, and that was the problem that I had with him, is that before that situation occurred, he was on the freeway, was told to stand down, and still went on a 100-mile-per-hour chase down a freeway chasing a subject. That's why you can't have cops that are, representing the people and they're criminals themselves. Now, since that happened, there's been some weird situations where some people have taken the sides of the police officer, saying, hey, technically that woman with that boiling pot of water, that was a deadly situation for the officer. But here's the problem with that. If I shoot a bullet, it's got the ability to go hundreds of yards, right, before it falls to the ground. Maybe even more than hundreds of yards. It's got the ability to go quite a ways. So you could easily shoot somebody from across the room. If somebody's throwing a pot of water at you, the water can probably only go, at most, maybe 6 or 7 yards, maybe 15, 20 feet, right? So I don't know why they couldn't just back up, get out of the way of the water, because even when somebody throws water at you, if they're far away, it's not like it hits you quickly. So anyway, back to what I was saying, because this is something that I really like your input on. A person holding a boiling pot of water, which I don't even know if it was boiling. That's supposedly what the situation was. Let's assume it's at least super hot water, right? She looks, based on the video image, like she's a good 12, 15 feet away from the officer. If somebody throws water at you, and the way you throw water is to take a pitcher backwards and to push it forwards, and then the water keeps going, right? That seems like something to me where you could easily back up, get out of range of the water, and it looks to me like if you absolutely have to shoot somebody, I know you're trained to shoot for their center of mass, right, or their heart and chest area, but you didn't shoot there, you shot them in the face multiple times. My thinking is, wouldn't that be a situation where you could technically try to shoot somebody in the arm or the leg? Now again, I know they're trained a certain way, but again, I guess it's just me. I don't really look at a kettle of boiling water the same way I would as a person rushing at me with a knife or a gun. So I would love your thoughts on this. And again, there might be potentially people that feel the opposite way of you. So again, if you guys would leave your opinion, and if other people would leave their opinion, and hopefully we can have a dialogue where we're allowed to potentially disagree. I almost always take the side of the police officer, but this Massey situation where Miss Massey is shot 3 times in the head, while you have police officers that have a shoddy, shady background, and then you find out that they're trying to turn on their cameras and turn off their cameras at certain times, those things are synonymous with being shady. And whenever you do anything law enforcement wise and you have a background of being shady or suspect yourself, those are things that I just can't square. Does anybody else feel the way I do, where they're like, how the heck was that police officer ever hired on? There comes a point where you have to say, this guy was a criminal himself, and I'm sure some people realize that. I think I even heard some audio of a previous sergeant that was talking to the guy, telling him that a lot of the stuff he did was bad and that he was going to suspend him. But again, that happened 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to bring up old memories. And for you guys heard about that 2 weeks ago as well. So it's not like it's still fresh on our minds. But again, we have some really weird situations. That's one of those things where I know a lot of people love going on vacations and going out of town. My thinking is, if you go on vacation and you go out of town, and I'm not talking out of the country, I'm talking just out of town. You go into another city or another state in our country, I think you should respect their laws. I think you should try your best to have a vacation that doesn't involve you going to jail, you know? And if you do go to another country, be wary. They might be one of these countries that has some way of getting background information on you. For all I know, they could have taken that woman's name and done a Google search, and all of a sudden her YouTube or TikTok pops up, and all of a sudden she's talking shit about Russia. If that's the situation, then my goodness, people going forward need to learn from that. And if you're going to be traveling to any country, don't start talking crap about them on your social media. Are you safe doing it in America? Yes, but right when you leave America and enter that country's soil, you're potentially going to go to jail. And again, I would much rather go to an American jail than a Russian jail. You know, it's funny, when I think of American jails and prisons, they sound miserable to me. But whenever I hear stories about prisons in South America or in Russia or in this place or that place, they almost always sound worse. So again, even when it comes to our prisoners and our criminals, we treat them so much better than they get treated around the world. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm one of these guys, I really feel like prisoners and criminals just deserve the book thrown at them. But my goodness, do you deserve a 12-year sentence for sending $50 to a charity? No, I can't validate that at all. You know, it's interesting, I say I can't validate that, but if you had a legitimate terrorist organization, right, and somebody starts sending them money, I could see how Americans could get really upset at that too. But I think Americans would never impose a 12-year sentence for something like that. Anyway, these are the thoughts that kind of go through my head, because again, sometimes situations just don't affect us when they could have. And again, my daughter went to Russia 6 years ago. Things like this could have affected her. They have people in jail over there for doing far less than being a reporter and traveling there. So again, I'm so glad that nothing happened to my family. If you or a family member has ever traveled to Russia, let me know. And if so, did you have any slow times at the airport where maybe they were looking to see if you were doing anything wrong? If you had that situation, share that too. Guys, we have 1 month left. We're all a little bit behind on our goal. What do we do about it? This is where you want to keep your shoes on and go for another lap. But make sure you stay hydrated, because it's hot out there. And I'll see you tomorrow.